Parkinson's disease. It's a name we all know, right? But I bet there's a side to it you've never really thought about. Today, we're going to look past the symptoms we can see and dive into this really wild intersection of biology, cutting-edge tech, and, believe it or not, the hidden power of our own minds.
So, when I say Parkinson's disease, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably the physical stuff, right? The tremors, the stiffness, and look, those are absolutely a huge part of it, but they are far from the whole story. It's so much more complex than that.
Yeah, there is so much more going on than meets the eye. In this explainer, we are going to connect the dots between the brain's biology, some really futuristic technology, and the mind's, well, its incredible ability to actually change how our bodies react to medicine. And trust me, this story has a few twists you won't see coming.
Okay, so let's start with Parkinson's hidden struggle. You know, we always talk about the physical side, the tremors. But for so many people living with this disease, one of the biggest, toughest battles is fought on the inside. We're talking about anxiety.
And here's the really crucial piece of the puzzle. This anxiety, it's not just, a normal reaction to getting a tough diagnosis. That would make sense, right? But no, this goes deeper. Research shows it's often caused by the very same chemical changes in the brain that are causing the movement problems. It's a core biological part of the disease itself.
And we're not talking about a small number of people here. Look at this, over 40%. More than 4 out of every 10 people with Parkinson's will deal with clinical anxiety during their illness. That is a massive challenge for a huge portion of this community.
So what does this anxiety actually look like? Well, it can show up in a bunch of different ways. You've got things like generalized anxiety disorder, which is that constant nagging worry, or even full-blown panic attacks that can feel totally overwhelming. And a really common one is social phobia, this intense fear that people will see your symptoms in public, which can make someone just completely withdraw from their social life.
Okay, so to fight back against these motor symptoms, modern medicine has come up with something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. It's called deep brain stimulation, or DBS. And really, the best way to think about it is like a pacemaker, but for the brain. And for people with advanced Parkinson's, this thing can be an absolute game changer. I mean, it's truly life-changing. It sends these tiny, targeted electrical pulses deep inside the brain, and that can just dramatically dial back the tremors, the stiffness, the slowness. It gives so many people their lives back. But what happens when a treatment that works miracles in one area creates a totally new, unexpected problem in another? Yeah, this is where our story takes a really interesting turn. So, just to recap, we've got this incredible technology that can stop the most obvious symptoms dead in their tracks. It sounds perfect, right? But it turns out there's a cost. Recent research is pointing to this really strange paradoxical side effect. And this quote from a 2023 study in Frontiers in Neurology just nails the problem. It basically says that this DBS treatment, the same one that helps the body move so much better, can actually mess with a patient's speech, making it way harder to speak clearly.
And look, this isn't just a case of, maybe their voice sounds a little different. No way. The researchers used a machine learning algorithm, an AI, that could tell the difference between the voices of DBS patients and healthy people with, get this, 92.4% accuracy. The machine could literally hear the damage with almost perfect certainty. That's wild.
So, the big question is, why is this happening? I mean, part of it is definitely the physical effect of the electricity in the brain. But to really get the full picture, we need to bring in a powerful psychological idea, one you might not be so familiar with. Okay, we've all heard of the placebo effect, right? The idea that if you believe something will help you, it actually can. The word placebo literally means I shall please. Well, it turns out placebo has a dark, evil twin, and it's called the nocebo effect, which means, you guessed it, I shall harm. So what is the nocebo effect? It's pretty simple, really. It's when your negative expectations about a treatment, say you're convinced you're going to get a certain side effect, actually make that side effect happen. Even if you're just taking a sugar pill, your brain's belief that you'll be harmed can cause real physical harm.
And just how powerful is this? Well, check this out. A huge study in 2022 looked at the COVID-19 vaccine trials, and they found that an incredible 72% of the negative side effects that people in the placebo group reported, the people who got the fake shot, were caused by the nocebo effect. That's not a small number. It shows that negative expectation is a seriously powerful force.
All right, so now it's time to connect all the dots. We've got 3 different things on the table: the anxiety that's part of Parkinson's itself, the speech problems that can come from DBS, and this weird nocebo effect.
How in the world do these things all fit together?
Well, it looks like they can create a kind of perfect storm. Think about it. Step 1. You have a patient who is already biologically wired for anxiety because of Parkinson's. Step 2. They're about to have major brain surgery, and the doctors have to tell them about all the things that could go wrong. That naturally creates fear, right? Negative expectations. Step 3. We know for a fact that DBS can physically impact speech. So here's the theory. The patient's mind, which is already revved up with anxiety and expecting something bad to happen, kicks the nocebo effect into high gear. And that amplifies the real physical side effect, making the speech problem way worse than it otherwise would have been.
So this intersection of the mind and the body, of psychology and biology, it raises some really big, really important questions for all of us, but especially for patients and doctors.
I mean, look at this. It points to this incredibly tricky ethical tightrope that doctors have to walk. On one hand, they have to tell patients about the risks of a procedure. That's called informed consent. It's a patient's right. But what if the very act of giving that information creates so much fear that it triggers a nocebo effect and actually causes harm? How do you balance a person's right to know with the core medical promise to, first, do no harm? It's a real dilemma.
And that really leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. If our expectations are so powerful that they can literally cause us physical harm, then what's the flip side of that coin? What is the full, untapped potential of our minds if we learn how to harness those same expectations, not to cause harm, but to heal?